Ernest, are you the only one in New York?
Yes. I checked out front to see if anyone arrived, and I told security if anyone does to bring them into the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, can we? Because we call it, we don't have a quorum, right?
Do you need 5 people?
5 on the
Yeah,
meeting, yeah.
5, and it's you, do I count as 4?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's you, 9 is 2.
there's 3 of us.
3,
There's 3
and
of us.
those guys are 9.
And then
And
we
we
have,
usually have,
Mr. Rodriguez is normally in New York.
normally.
Lillian is normally here.
Anthony is no longer on.
Did you get the notification that Anthony resigned? Did he actually officially resign?
Yeah, so Anthony resigned, correct?
So,
So he was on the agenda.
Did we get documentation? Do we get documentation from him?
so with, if he's no longer a board member, does that make quorum of active board members?
There's 9.
There's no active versus
Dave
non-active.
David,
confirmed, but there's 9 total seats, so you need the majority of those.
I think regardless of what
Dave, correct?
That has to be.
Yes, we need a total of 5. This is one of the boards where the statute doesn't say, quorum of those serving. So unfortunately, we need 5 for today.
I do know Chanel reached out for an address the other day, so I'm assuming maybe she's running late.
It's not. William was excused.
3. None of these guys
I got an email from this thing he was out as soon as says to officially resign, you need to submit a letter, right?
What?
You need to submit a letter of resignation to be considered off.
I think Heidi reached out and.
I did reach out to her to provide that.
And I provided to, right?
Sure. No. Chris, we just can't.
Give
We
me 5
also-
more minutes if you want.
I
Go.
think we have to schedule another meeting.
Can you present and not vote on things? Or will you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll present, we won't do anything,
You can't vote on anything, you just gotta
no, we
present.
can't pass anything. We can do informational
Right.
agenda.
But we will need to schedule immediately another meeting because this can't wait. There's no,
This use map's got
this
to
use
pass.
map's gotta be, and we have
Passed
to,
by
we have to
January
reach
1st,
out
right?
to each board member in
The use map updates have to be passed by January 1st. And we can't do it by, obviously, we can't do it by Zoom meeting anymore, we have to be live. David?
Has to be in person.
Yeah, we will, unless we have 5 members present today, we're going to have to reconvene and have another board meeting. The open meetings law no longer allow entirely video conferencing, except for emergency or extraordinary circumstances. The board had voted previously to allow that, but without notice of an extraordinary circumstance, everyone has to appear who's a voting member in a public location.
Can we get another meeting scheduled before the end of the year?
We'll have to if we're going to comply with the use map update.
So, as long as we're on this topic, I'll ask a question. The board members don't necessarily need to be in the same room, but in a secured area. So if we opened up other locations, like we have one in Buffalo, one in New York, one in Albany, if we open up other locations to make it convenient for board members, to make the meetings, like Carol and I do not have to be in the same room, correct?
Correct, but the rule would be that any physical location where a board member would appear would then constitute an open meeting location. So the public has a right to have notice that, there will be a board meeting. It'll be, at this time, at this location. The public will have access and right to appear at the very same location.
Okay.
So
And how much-
there was
Or do that.
another board, for example, where, somebody listed his personal office. He was a doctor on another board, and for notice requirements, his private office became a public meeting location. So if somebody had shown up, he would have had to let them in and sit at the table with them.
So, I mean, all that is just an announcement criteria, correct? So if we already make announcements for Buffalo, New York City, and Albany, would that just be adding the additional addresses onto the announcement?
You have to accept anybody that shows up.
Well, I mean, we do it now. I mean, we can see, basically, if we've all been around long enough to see that we basically have 2 or 3 people that show up at each meeting. I don't think is there going to be an influx if we did it in Utica or Syracuse. I don't think we're going to have an influx of 700 people showing up, storming the state building in Albany or state building in Syracuse.
I mean, it would also obviously have to depend on, capability of the location to communicate by video conference. Obviously,
The only reason I bring it up
approval.
is because I'd rather not have a situation where, again, we have to have 4 people show up in Albany and then no one else shows up and we're pushing, not kicking the can down the road, but we're getting it, into more and more of a situation where we have to have meetings. We have to pass the use path changes. I'm just trying to make it easier so we get a quorum, so.
Well, I think part of the problem is the agendas. How much notice does it have to be, David, for the public notice?
Generally, it's 7 days beforehand. If there's an
Okay.
emergency, then less notice is required.
Okay.
This is March.
All right,
It's actually 7 or 10. I forget. I can check that now.
Okay, so we need another meeting before the end of the year. First of all, just a couple.
we have to.
We do not have a quorum.
No, we don't have a quorum, and it's, again, it's for us, and believe me, I'm not complaining by any stretch of the imagination. It's 2 or 3 hours to get here. It's 2 or 3 hours to get back. It's a 6 to 8 hour day, which no one has ever complained about. But maybe it's time that we address
So that's part of the
situation where-
housekeeping
Okay,
that I wanted to announce today. I can talk about it now, but the meeting hasn't started, so.
okay.
Alright.
Well, do we want to wait or shall we?
I think we should get it started and
Okay.
save the use path for the end, and if
Okay.
somebody comes in.
So let's call to order the New York State Board of Real Estate Appraisers for November 16, 2023. If we want to go around the room and introduce ourselves, why not? We'll start in New York. Ernest?
Ernest Delaney with New York State Department of State.
Thank you. David?
David Mossberg. I'm a supervising attorney with the Department of State.
Thank you. Howard? Oh, never mind. Sorry. Well, you sure, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's Howard Hubbard, I'm your court reporter. And actually, can I get your name, the person that's speaking right now, can I get your name, please?
I'm Stephen Roefaro, Roefaro. I'm the board chairperson for the New York State Board of Real Estate Appraisers.
This is Washington?
Yes.
Yeah, coach.
Okay. Looks like we got good news.
Two.
people.
Two.
We need more board members.
Okay.
We've been
That's very
trying
requested.
to get appointments off for years.
I think we're making it.
Can you just?
So we
ask
just had
anybody?
2 new appointments this year, but we
So you
still.
just lost, excuse me.
The open seats are for either the assembly,
Governor.
the governor, you have a public?
Yeah. And this is actually your seat. If you want to sit up closer, because I'm actually here.
Okay.
Hello,
everyone.
My name is, by the way. Have a seat, be comfortable, and they actually were waiting.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Can they hear me? Hello.
would you like to introduce yourself, Chanel?
Yes, so I was stopped downstairs, so sorry about the lateness, because it's my first time.
That's okay.
That's okay.
And then, they made me wait in another waiting area because they weren't sure. So, sorry, you guys, but I'm Chanel Washington, it's my first time, and I'm excited.
Thank you, we appreciate you coming. You didn't need to
Yes.
explain it to us, we just wanted you to introduce yourself for the record, that's all.
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay. So,
I'm
we'll-
Carol DeSano, Vice Chair.
Susan Baldwin, first time.
Shannon McGuire, Department of State.
Heidi Hicks, Department of State.
Allison Lacey, Department of State. Emily Lupi, Department of State.
Jody DeLallo, Department of State.
and our guest,
Good afternoon, I'm Scott DiBiasio with the Appraisal Institute.
Rebecca Jones, just boots on the ground appraiser.
subcommittee member. Okay. Let's see. Approval of, in your package, you'll have meeting notes from the May 12th, 2022, and the August 3rd, 2023 meeting summaries. If we could please vote to pass those. No, we can't, never mind. So if you would like to read through those, and then if another person shows up, pass them. Okay, moving through our agenda, agenda item 2, set A, enforcement, Ernest Delaney.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So this enforcement report will cover the period from August of this year, the time of our last appraisal board meeting, to the present. Over that time period, DOS received a total of 29 new appraiser complaints. Meanwhile, we completed the investigation on 18 complaints. Of the disposition for those investigations, 2 cases were closed due to no violation. 1 was closed with a warning issued against the appraiser. 2 were closed as duplicate. 1 was closed due to insufficient evidence. Another complaint was closed with a hold, which would prevent the appraiser from renewing until he addressed issues with us. 1 was closed as other. Fortunately, the appraiser had passed away. And 10 cases were referred to our counsel's office with the recommendation of disciplinary action. Our current appraiser complaint caseload is 32 cases. As we come to the end of the year and compare 2022 to 2023, we find that 2022, we closed investigations on a total of 69 appraiser cases. In comparison, this year, we closed our investigation on 94 cases. And this increase, this 36% increase in our closure is due to changes we had made to our procedures for investigating appraiser cases and the hiring of new additional appraiser regional advisors to help us review those complaints. As these changes was just introduced this year, we expect going forward there to be improvement further in our production. That concludes my enforcement report. Are there any questions?
Any questions of Ernest? Thank you very much, Ernest, for that update. Moving on to section 2B, processing report. Emily Lupi.
Good afternoon. Included in the materials you were provided, you will find licensing statistics for October of 2022 and October of 2023. These reports show the number of real estate appraisers broken down by county and by class code or license type. The numbers between the years are fairly consistent. They are slightly lower this year compared to last year at the same time, but overall represents a less than 3% change in numbers. That concludes the processing report.
Any questions of Emily? Thank you, Emily, for your report. Moving on to section 2C, continuing education audits. Allison?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You're laughing at my glasses.
No. The Bureau of Educational Standards is conducting continuing education audits. We randomly select 5% of monthly renewals and all late renewals for this audit. For the months of April 2023 through October 2023, we conducted a total of 56 audits. Out of that 56, 44 have complied, and the rest are still within the time frame to respond to us. In addition, the 2024-2025 version of the 7-hour USPAP course has been released. The department will notify education providers that they will need to begin offering the new version on January 1st, 2024.
Okay. Are there any questions?
What if you take this seminar in December of this year?
I've already taken it.
As long as the course is approved by us.
Okay.
And they shouldn't be offering it for New York credit if it hasn't been approved. It was approved. Yeah, so you're good.
Okay. Any other questions of Allison? Allison, thank you. Section 3, new business. I think we're gonna hold off on David, hoping that magically some other board member appears. And at this point, I'd like to call on subcommittee member and public member Rebecca Jones. Rebecca?
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Farrell, please, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rebecca Jones. I am a boots on the ground real estate appraiser. I've been in the profession since the mid-'80s. I have been a volunteer arm. I don't know if I'd call it an arm. I've been a volunteer person that shows up to the meetings and just support in the best way I can since '08. I have not, and I will answer this question publicly, not a board member just because of health reasons. I can't commit to that type of timing. So with that, I have been involved with the practical application of real estate POREA task group. I am reading a report I do have printed, but I'm just gonna leave them here because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to hand them out or not, but I will go through and just quickly the history. The Appraisal Foundation via the qualification board allows a different pathway for appraisers to gain experience. So with that, we have met 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times as a task group starting March of 21. 3 of those 10 have been with the Department of State. We stopped meeting May of 2022 because we were actually waiting for this type of practical application program to be able to touch it, feel it, and see it. Because we haven't been able to see it because it hasn't been created. As of today's date, and that's why Scott is here, the Appraisal Institute is the only approved provider for POREA at this point. So we do have that available to the task group. So I was a little obnoxious about wanting us to be able to see that. I apologize, but I'm here for passion purposes and just the volunteer. 3 main concerns that we have as a task group, and like I said, I have it here in a handout, is the actual law, and David, we talked about this in our meeting. It's the hourly experience requirements. It's section 1102.2. It's the breaking down of the 24 months. New York State still requires 24 months for anybody that's trying to gain the experience. The foundation reduced it, but when those reductions came through, I think it was 2015, the last time we did a reduction. 18, thank you, Scott. We, as a state, did not change that particular piece of the law, that 24-month requirement. So that's a concern for us with the task group, because if I have an assistant that's gone through all the education, goes over to the Appraisal Institute and acquires POREA, are they gonna have to wait 24 months before they can take the next step and then upgrade their license? So that's a huge concern for the task group. The second concern was the definition of mentor. The task group talked about wanting to maybe make it more restrictive in New York State. And then the third was the USPAP compliant reports. The minimum requirements are 3 USPAP compliant reports through the POREA program. And we talked about whether or not that's sufficient enough for our New York State appraisers. So with that, that is my report.
Okay. Are there questions of board members or staff for Becky?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to attend the next subcommittee meeting. And I don't know if it would be appropriate for Dave to attend as well.
So,
A representative of legal staff, Dave, do you think that's appropriate for the next subcommittee meeting?
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Sorry. I was just mentioning that I'd like to attend the next POREA subcommittee meeting, and I didn't know if you or someone from legal would like to attend as well. So we can get some of these questions, concerns addressed in subcommittee and then report. Okay.
so we did
Yeah, I'd be
have
happy to attend.
I was gonna say, Dave, you were there March 21, April 21, May 21, so we did have staff there. At this point, we don't have a meeting scheduled, and honestly, I don't know if it's gonna be something I'm gonna move forward with, because I'm exhausted.
Well, we'll have to try to work out the logistics, see who is interested and who can make the meeting. Because I have questions from, and Scott and I were speaking, Dave's there, right? Dave, is this pathway, and correct me if I'm wrong in this process, is this pathway something we can do in a housekeeping bill, or is this something we're gonna have to introduce new legislation on?
So you would have to do new legislation to amend the executive law, and then for things like the 24-year requirement, that would be something that this board could do regulatorily. So it would be a combination of both.
Okay. So even accepting whatever version of this comes out, it still has to go through the legislative process of us getting sponsors and so on and so forth.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm still in the joint.
But I don't know if there's gonna be a meeting. If there's a meeting, is it possible if I can also attend?
Definitely.
Okay.
All board members are invited to subcommittee meetings.
That might not be true, Dave.
So provided that you don't have 5 members, because otherwise it would actually trigger the open meeting law. So long as there wasn't 5 members, it'd be okay.
All right. Okay. All right, we'll have to keep that in mind when we structure the committee. All right, good conversations. Any more questions of Becky? Thank you, Becky, for all that you do. I won't make you call your chairman referral anymore. All right. Do you want to go back to USPAC and update with David at this point? No, we don't. David, do you want like? You want to have him do the update?
I think you can talk about
Dave, do you want to do the informational update on USPAC?
Sure. With the understanding, obviously, that there can't be a board vote and there will have to be another meeting in the future. But I'm happy to give a little background. So, as I'm sure all the board members know, the USPAP is generally updated every 2 years. The last official update was the 2020 to the 2021 version of USPAP, and that is codified in our regulations at section 1106.1. Throughout COVID, that USPAP edition had continued, subject to the new version coming out, which is set to go into effect on January 1st, 2024. Unlike other versions, this one doesn't have an automatic expiration date. So, whereas in the past, as I mentioned, we would come and vote every 2 years to update, there's the possibility that this one will stay longer and, it'll just be amended through, other, technical changes rather than a whole new USPAP updated version. So the purpose of this being on the agenda item would have been to confirm with the board that a regulatory change to 1106.1 could be voted on, so that we would have basically all the appraisers complying with the new USPAP by the start of next year. So that was basically the update, but since there's no vote, I'll sort of skip the overly technical regulatory part for the next time. That's okay, unless anyone wants to hear it.
Anyone have questions of David for USPAP update?
It's gotta be done.
Yeah.
There's no doubt we have to pass it. We have to have it passed before the end of the year. I don't know how we get that done.
I will reach out with dates and we can get everyone to agree on one that works for everyone's schedule.
I think we did that already and it didn't work, so I don't know, I think maybe a more direct conversation with each board member and kind of explain the impact and get a commitment. Does that work?
That works. We, at one point, but I think it was during COVID, we actually did a email vote on something and confirmed their vote. We can't do that again, correct?
I think public law, I don't know if that works for a government agency, but it has to be in writing from each and every board member. And you have to have a response, yea or nay. But is that true for government also?
I would think not, but Dave did. Dave, I don't know if you heard the question.
No, I couldn't hear. Too far away from the mic, sorry.
At one point, and I think it might have been during COVID, I'll ask for clarification anyway, we did a roll call vote, an email roll call vote, where every member had to confirm. And we printed out their confirmation, and we counted that as an actual vote. Is that something we only did during COVID?
I mean, that could have been during one of the emergency executive orders. I don't recall the specifics of any vote like that. What I can say definitively is that currently that would not be appropriate or lawful. There's no opportunity for that currently.
Okay. All right, thank you, David, for the
Mm-hmm.
update. We appreciate it. Jody, you are our
housekeeping
new business agenda item D.
All right, D for Delalo.
There you go.
So at the last meeting, we discussed that, we have quite a few board members from the western part of the state. You expressed, Steve specifically, you were looking for a place in Syracuse. So I did confirm that we have no space in Syracuse, but we have space in Utica. The department we have staff in Utica now, the department. So there's no conference equipment now. but we're in the process of obtaining additional space, which has a conference room that fits 10 to 12 people, and they need our ITS to hook up the appropriate cables and whatever they need for the conference equipment. Then we're purchasing conference equipment. So I talked this morning to our administrative unit to see what the time frame was. They were waiting to hear back, but I said within the next few months, they said yes. So it might not help us before the end of the year, but moving forward, we'll have a place in Utica where those who live out west can go there instead of coming
Yeah, I
out.
mean, so that would leave you with a 45-minute drive instead of a 2-hour drive.
Hour, but
Hour.
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, and
But
then,
you're gonna need a meeting in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
yeah, we're gonna have to have a
And
meeting with the
that's
next.
a big commitment for me to come back out.
Well, let's put it out. Let's get to,
Holidays.
we can kind of discuss it after we close off the meeting and see if there's a date for at least the 4 of us that are here.
And then we need to work on, I mean, we don't have anything from the Albany Market as a board member, do we? I mean, there's a lot of MAIs here, and I'm gonna reach out to all of them, we gotta get somebody else on this
Yeah,
board.
I mean, and we've made it in the last year or so, under Jody's guidance, we've made it easier to obtain a board position, because we had people in the pipeline for a while that sat. So hopefully if we cultivate the other open spaces, we won't have this problem again with getting 5 people and opening up another location. So even Lillian's from Binghamton, that's only an hour drive, you would work for her.
That's not,
It's more than an hour.
it's 2 hours, 2 hours
So,
drive.
I drive fast.
And Utica's gonna be far,
Oh, Utica's farther for her than Albany.
cause she come up 88.
Okay,
I'm
All right.
I'm the farthest one.
yeah, you are.
Yeah, sure.
I live in the middle of nowhere.
All right, so
6 hour trip round trip.
moving through our agenda item number 4 is public comment period. Is there anybody in New York that would like to make a comment? Okay.
No.
Okay, and anyone in Albany? I know Scott signed up, so I'm gonna turn and talk to Scott.
Sure. Is it okay if I come up to the table just so I'm not talking to the back of anybody's head?
Sure.
And is there a time limit? How long?
No, this was,
I'm not sure,
you
no,
got
those are
all
asked
the
that.
time you need.
You're the first person in 20 years.
Oh.
I really don't.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Scott DiBiasio. I'm with the Appraisal Institute out of Washington, D.C. And I appreciate the opportunity to come up here today to talk a little bit about the practical applications of real estate appraisal that Becky's subcommittee has been dutifully reviewing for the last couple of years. And for those of you that may not know, PREA is an alternative pathway for someone to get the experience that is necessary to become a licensed or certified residential appraiser. There's some application to commercial as well, but primarily it's for licensed or certified residential. Of course, the pathway that we have known for the last 35 or so years is the supervisor trainee model, where somebody, I guess it's called an assistant here in New York, somebody has to become an assistant and work with a supervisor for a period of time. Here in New York, it's a period of 24 months. The AQB only requires 12 months for licensed residential and 18 months for certified residential. So you do have that requirement here that goes above and beyond. And what we have found over the last many years is that the inability of a trainee to be able to find a supervisor is the single highest barrier to entry into the profession. There's a number of reasons for that, not the least of which is that it takes a big time, and in some cases a financial commitment, for a supervisor to be able to take on a trainee. There's increased liability that's associated with it. In many cases, residential appraisers work out of their homes, and to have a trainee would require inviting somebody into your home on a periodic basis to be able to work with them on an appraisal assignment. Of course, I'm sure you've heard all of the evidence and statistics that the appraisal profession is overwhelmingly white, about split half and half between male and female, and the average age of a real estate appraiser is well over 60 years old at this point. And the supervisor trainee model of getting experience, like I said, has served as the single biggest barrier to entry into the profession. And over the last 15 or so years, there's been a very precipitous decline in the number of appraisers, licensed and certified appraisers, and the number of appraisers that are becoming trainees and indicating that they want to get into the profession. Listening to the numbers, perhaps it's not as precipitous here in New York, but overall nationwide, the numbers have been going down pretty significantly. So the Appraiser Qualifications Board, about 9 years or so ago, decided that there needed to be a different pathway for people to be able to come into the profession. And they went to work on developing PREA, which is a technology-based way for somebody to get the same type of experience that they would get in the field working with a supervisor. There's a number of different technologies that can be utilized: virtual reality, augmented reality, computer-based learning, so on and so forth, to try to replicate as best we can the experience that someone would have if they were working with a supervisor. Replicate the inspection component, replicate the analysis, data collection component, replicate the analysis component, and replicate the report writing component. So the AQB develops PREA, or put the framework in place for PREA, and it became effective on January 1st of 2021. And of course, the AQB is not a provider of any education or of PREA, so it was up to the individual education providers to make a decision as to whether or not they wanted to make the capital investment necessary to develop a PREA program. And I can tell you it is at least on our part, it was a very significant capital investment. So the Appraisal Institute, we went about developing a PREA program, and we submitted it to the Appraiser Qualifications Board first back in May of this year, and then again in September of this year for the Certified Residential Module. And the AQB granted us approval to be able to begin offering our PREA program in the marketplace. It's available now in those states, 47 of them, that have indicated that they will accept PREA as equivalent to and as an alternative to the experience hours that would be gained with a traditional supervisor. So what I've been doing over the last 2 or 3 years is traveling around the country working with state regulators like yourself, making sure that the regulatory framework is in place in order for somebody to be able to go through PREA and come here with a certificate of completion, and for that to be acceptable to you to satisfy the experience requirement. And like I said, so far, 47 states, 47 jurisdictions, not all of them are states, but 47 jurisdictions have said that they will accept PREA. Now, of those 47, 28 of them, I believe, are fully what we refer to as 100% PREA ready, meaning that all of the rules and regulations are in place, and we can, in fact, enroll folks in AI PREA, as we refer to it as. And the remaining 19 of those states are in various different stages of the rulemaking process, and they will become PREA ready here in the coming months. So within not too long a period of time, we'll have 47 states in which somebody can enroll in a PREA program. Not just necessarily the AIs, there are other developers of PREA programs that are working on developing those programs now. One entity, and I can't speak for them obviously, but they've been very open about the fact that they are developing a PREA program. And then there's also an AMC out of Australia. I'm not sure if they are registered here in New York or not. Option. They are the third entity that we are aware of that is developing a Korea program. However, their program, we understand, I don't know this for a fact, but we understand that they're only going to offer their Korea program internally for their own panel and staff development purposes. So for the time being, AI Korea is the only program that is available in the marketplace, although ISIC will be coming online here, they say, towards the end of 2024. I'm very happy to say that we have over 100 people now enrolled in AI Korea from around the country. We have a list of 800 people, over 800 people that have started what we refer to as a readiness checklist, meaning that there are various things that we have to verify, mainly that they have all of their qualifying education complete, all 150 or 200 hours. We have to verify all that before we can enroll them in the AI Korea. We also require that they express to us their ability to be able to satisfy a background check. We don't necessarily, obviously don't want them to expend the money that it costs and the time that it will take to be able to go through Korea, only to apply for licensing and have something found in their background that is a disqualifying factor. So we get all of that out of the way up front to make sure that they, in fact, can pass a background check. We have about 800 people that have started that readiness checklist. And interestingly enough, what we're finding is people don't understand that they do have to have all of their qualifying education, not just the initial 75 hours. They have to have all 150 or 200 hours complete before they can enroll in a Korea program. People are coming to us with just 75 hours saying, I want to enroll, and we're having to say, you need to go back and complete the remaining 75 hours or 125 hours. So I'm not sure where the breakdown was with that communication, but bottom line is we're hopeful that of those 800, a significant portion will ultimately become participants in AI Korea. So the reason I'm here today is New York is one of the 8 jurisdictions that has not yet indicated that you will accept Korea as that alternative pathway. And I wanted to come here today to encourage you to take the work that Becky's subcommittee did and begin the process of implementing Korea so that folks here in New York can utilize that as an alternative pathway to becoming licensed. And I will tell you that it's my interpretation that Section 160-K of the executive law does allow this board to adopt and put in place Korea by regulation. 160K says that somebody has to demonstrate that they have the equivalent of 2 years of appraisal experience as defined in regulation by the board. So this board could very easily, I think, say Korea is completion of an AQB certified Korea program, licensed residential or certified residential, is the equivalent of 2 years of working under a supervisor. So I don't necessarily think that it's going to require statutory change to be able to do it, although better, smarter people than me that are legally trained, think otherwise. But it's my interpretation of 160-K that you do have the authority to be able to write the regulations to be able to implement Korea. Of course, the rulemaking process is much easier than having to go across the street to the legislature and get a law passed to be able to do that. So I wanted to come and encourage you all to at least make an indication that you are willing to accept Korea and to begin whatever process it is that is determined is necessary to make that to be able to happen. Like I said, there's 47 other jurisdictions that have done it, and I don't see any compelling reason at this point why New York shouldn't do it as well. And to Becky's question or point in her report about the mentors, I can tell you that from the Appraisal Institute's perspective, our our mentors are all obviously certified residential, and in one case, I think certified general appraiser. They're all designated members of the Appraisal Institute. They're full-time employees of the Appraisal Institute, so there's a lot of accountability. And they have a very detailed plan, a very detailed guidebook by which they are required to mentor the folks that come into the program that are assigned to them. It's a very, very standardized program. It's something that, like I said, there's accountability. And quite frankly, I think with Korea, you're going to get a better trained appraiser than you do through the traditional supervisor trainee method. And here's the reason why. We all know that there are bad supervisors out there. And when trainees learn something incorrectly the first time, it's very hard for them to break those habits. And oftentimes, the only way that you're able to break them of those bad habits that they learn from their supervisor is through disciplinary action. And PREA is going to provide a standardized program by which folks will be exposed to all kinds of different types of properties, single family, townhomes, condos, co-ops, vacant land, complex properties, so on and so forth. So somebody that goes through the PREA program, I think, is going to come out a much more well-rounded appraiser than somebody that becomes an appraiser through the supervisor trainee method. One other thing I want you to think about is, especially in a large state like New York, if somebody is trained in Buffalo and they work under a supervisor whose practice is only doing mortgage lending work, single-family residential appraisals for mortgage lending purposes in homogeneous neighborhoods, let's say, that's all they're going to know how to do. Those are the only types of properties that they are going to know how to appraise. If for some reason they then get transported down to New York City and take an appraisal job there, that's obviously a very, very different type of market than they were trained in Buffalo. Obviously, they're going to have USPAC requires that they become competent in that market before they accept assignments. But the type of training that you get through the supervisor trainee model is very, very similar and doesn't necessarily expose the appraiser to different types of properties, different types of assignments, all kinds of different characteristics of properties, so on and so forth. So PREA is going to expose somebody to a much wider array of types of properties, types of assignments, and we're also going to ensure that they are trained, obviously, in appropriate methods and techniques, and standardized methods and techniques. Within the AI PREA program, I know that Becky mentioned that the minimum is 3 USPAP compliant appraisal reports. I can tell you that within AI PREA, if somebody goes all the way through the certified residential program, they will have completed 26 full of USPAP compliant appraisal reports. So our program goes much, much farther beyond what the minimum requirements are of the appraiser qualifications board. So I don't want to take too much more of your time. I think that provides sort of a good overview of PREA. I think that at some point, and maybe this was only the subcommittee, but I know that the appraiser qualifications board had come up virtually, I believe it was, and did a presentation from their perspective on PREA. And that was before we actually had programs available in the marketplace. So I wanted to come up and talk a little bit about PREA and also about AI PREA, and really urge you to put in place the requirements that are necessary, the rules that are necessary for PREA to be able to be accepted here. And one thing that I can tell you that I think is going to happen is that if for some reason New York does not indicate acceptance of PREA, folks will get licensed in other states and then come in via reciprocity.
Okay, so at that point, just those are things that we can discuss, not necessarily here, and with the reciprocity discussions. I mean, I'd like to keep it on just the topic at hand, not necessarily that.
Sure. Yeah. So anyway, that is the long and short of Korea. We're very, very excited about it. All indications are that that people that are in the program right now are progressing along very well. It's taking them more time than we anticipated to be able to go through each of the 13 assignments that are contained within the licensed residential module. And that's a good thing, actually, because it shows that they are being sufficiently challenged within Korea. We estimated that it was going to take 2 to 4 weeks for them to complete each assignment, and it's actually taking 4 to 6 weeks. So they're finding it very difficult, but I think that, again, that's an indication that the program is, this is not something you're going to knock out on a Sunday afternoon. It's going to take about the same amount of time as it does to be able to get the experience through the supervisor training model. So 6 months for LR and 12 months for certified residential. So that, in a nutshell, is Korea, what the AQB did to put the framework in place, and how one organization like ours was able to put some meat on the bones of that framework and put in the marketplace what we think is a very, very solid Korea program that will result in very well trained appraisers coming into the profession. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I don't know if there's an opportunity for questions or not, but I don't even know if this is an official meeting or not.
It is.
Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity and would be happy to talk with you individually if there's no opportunity for questions or anything like that. So thank you.
Right, so I want to thank Scott, because I know he traveled a good distance to get here. We really appreciate the update. The thing, and this is not back and forth, but just the Appraisal Institute sets a standard that we would like to have everybody on the same level. So the reason that we look at it and we discuss the definition of mentor and firming these things up, because it's not our concern from a professional perspective of the Appraisal Institute, but it's another provider that comes in that utilizes that description, to do it the way they want to do it. We're not going to, we don't want to have that happen here. But I appreciate you coming in. You definitely bring a lot of knowledge to the table, and if we need clarification again, we'd like to have you come back.
Absolutely, I'm more than happy.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other public comment? Okay, that being said, I'd like to entertain an adjournment. I'd also like to entertain, we're going to have to get back together at some point before January 1st to pass the use PAP changes.
Can I bring up something else on this?
Sure.
I want to officially say that I will be resigning from the board. I have served for more than 12 years. I had a major stroke in May, still showed up at the last meeting. I find it very frustrating that I traveled 6 hours today and we couldn't get a quorum. I plead with you that we will have new appointees. I've been looking forward to new appointees for several years. And I'm so happy to welcome Susan and I'm going to say it wrong, Ms. Washington, who I spoke to on the phone before, to the board, and I hope that you will feel free to call me with any questions. I just can't continue with this. So I wanted to tell you so that you're not surprised that it's coming. I've been toying with it for a long time, but with the health issues of my husband and myself in the last year, I find it too difficult to continue to travel and do all these things and not be able to accomplish what I want to. I think that we did accomplish a lot of great things with our AMC law, with our legislation for fair housing and fair lending, continuing education requirements, which is now bond national, and we need to prove that, David. And I hope that we will continue forward in a positive manner. And I really appreciate Scott being here today to inform you about this program. I think I'd like to to see this through, but I'm not sure that what my health is gonna allow in the future. And I think it's only fair that we have good replacements in place and other people coming up, and we have to do that now. We cannot not do that, or we'll be in trouble with the ASC.
Well, we do appreciate everything you've done throughout the years. It's been a pleasure working with you on a lot of, I mean, just invaluable, your input and your knowledge and your expertise, so thank you.
Thank you. And I'm so happy that this program, as David said, as Scott said, to the training modules of the Korea, some of the things that you talked about, different types of properties, is a problem. And we are a very diverse state in that there's city locations, country locations, small city locations. There's many different types of titles that this is a way for people to really get a good education and experience credits moving forward to be able to diversify that. So I also want to say that I am very much pro that we may need to tweak our approval of it, but I just want it to be known that I am very much for this moving forward.
Is this your last one?
It may be my last game. I'll be here if we can get a meeting together by the end of the year. I was planning on going to the end of the year.
Okay.
It's really imperative that we have another meeting. That's all.
Is there a location?
Is there a location?
Check. I'm actually supposed to be
Yeah.
I don't think there is, but we can check.
There's a state office there, and whether they're capable of.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any video conferencing.
Well, I
We
was,
can find out.
I was aware of Carol's decision, but I thought it would be in January, we'd have cake. So she'll be making another meeting. We can have cake anyway. Carol has been invaluable. If I have to express it today, I'm sorry.
Is
Go ahead.
there any way that the members, if we can get just a list, because I realize that it's been taken from offline, probably because people don't want people calling them, but is it a way that we can get a list of each other's contacts? So
It
that
should be in your packet.
In your
It
packet.
should be in your packet. There's board members with contacts.
Just the public, so it doesn't have the numbers that are available as part of the meeting material.
There's a Southern Department of State website.
This is what we have, but it doesn't have.
Public
Yeah, it doesn't have the contacts.
Public information is, but if, yeah.
But if an email can just get sent out with our phone numbers, if
Yeah,
possible.
that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, we can do that. And I think we really gotta work on new members.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Members.
It's beyond.
There's gotta be somebody here in Albany with maybe another person like Long Island should be represented,
And we always try to stay geographic.
right? So should have somebody Albany, somebody Long Island.
Somebody in Buffalo, because
Now you need somebody in Western New York.
someone in Western New York. We could work on, is there people in the pipeline? Put the word out. I do send the information to
Heidi.
send the information to Heidi. And we
Yeah,
can
somebody
start,
who's interested, just send the name to Heidi and
Correct.
with the name and phone number.
Resume.
Right.
yeah, if you want to give them Heidi's information, is that okay? That they can forward a resume and a letter of intent to want to serve. Yeah, and a letter of intent to serve, and then we can take it from there. Yeah, so I'll have to roast Carol at the next meeting, but on a short-sighted comment,
Don't give you too much
Carol has
office.
been a mentor to me and a fountain of knowledge for all of us throughout the years. What I've asked them to do, she's always graciously stepped up and done full capacity. So I can't thank her enough personally for what she's brought to New York State and to this occupation over the last, I won't give it a number of years. So when she shows up at the next meeting, we'll have cake. Except Jody's got cake in her office. All right, that being said, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good Thanksgiving if we don't see you before then. Be safe.
Okay.
One
You
moment,
speak.
one moment.
Yes.
I have a spelling I need. Hang on, I have a spelling I need. This is the court reporter. The person that spoke at the end there, Scott, can I get his spelling?
DIBIASIO.
SION?
SIO. Last three letters are SIO.
Ah,
DIBIASIO.
Got it, all right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
Howard.
much.
Have a
Yeah,
good
everybody have a
Thanksgiving.
good evening.
David, Ernest, Sean, have a good Thanksgiving.
You too.
Take care, Steve. Thank you.
All right, bye guys.
I'll go forward
Yeah.
and see what
Hangs up before we even,
What you said?
it hangs up